Let me tell you about a fella I helped at the tackle shop one afternoon. Good man, wanted to get his boy into fishing, and he was standing in front of a wall of rods. Must have been 200 of them, floor to ceiling, and he had that look. You know the look. The one that says, I have no earthly idea what I'm looking at, and I'm about to just grab the prettiest one and run. And on that rod, printed right on the side, was a bunch of little words and numbers. Medium, fast action, 6 to 12 pound. And he read it out loud to me like it was a foreign language. 'Cause to him it was. And I told him what I'm going to tell you. That ain't a foreign language. That's the rod talking to you. That's the rod telling you exactly what it's good at and what fish it wants to catch, if you just know how to read it. And once you can read it, that wall of 200 rods shrinks down to the 2 or 3 that are actually right for you. My name is Bo Landry. I've been guiding folks on the bayous and lakes down here in Louisiana most of my life, and I've fished, I'd guess, more rods than I could count. Got a whole rack of them in the shed. Some cost $80, some cost a lot more. So today I'm going to teach you to read a fishing rod like I read the water. By the end of this, you'll walk up to that wall, pick up a rod, read what's printed on it, and know in about 3 seconds if it belongs in your hands or not. No guessing. No grabbing the pretty one. Let's get into it. First, spinning or casting. Before anything else, there's one split you got to understand, 'cause it decides half the aisle. Rods come in 2 families, spinning rods and casting rods. And here's the only thing you truly have to get right. The rod's got to match the reel. A spinning rod goes with a spinning reel. That's the one that hangs underneath the rod. A casting rod goes with a bait caster or a spin cast reel. Those sit on top. You cannot mix them up. Put a spinning reel on a casting rod and it just won't work right. The guides are the wrong size and on the wrong side. So the very first question, before you look at anything else, is, what reel are you fishing? Match the rod to that. Get that one thing right, and everything after it is just fine-tuning. Reading the rod, what those little words mean. All right, now the good part. Pick up any rod and look close, usually right up above the handle. There's a bunch of specs printed right there. The length, a power rating, an action rating, and a little recommendation for what line and lure weight it likes. That's the whole language, and it's only a few words. Let me walk you through each one, 'cause once you got these, you got it all. Action, where the rod bends. Let's start with action, 'cause it's the one folks get confused about the most. Action is simply where the rod bends when you put pressure on it. A fast action rod bends way up near the tip. Just the top little bit flexes, and the rest of it stays stiff. That stiff part, that's the backbone, and it's where all your power lives. A fast rod snaps up quick and drives a hook home hard. That's what you want when you're throwing baits with big stout hooks, heavy jigs, spinner baits, chatter baits, crankbaits, 'cause it takes muscle to bury those hooks, and the fast rod's got it. A moderate action rod is the opposite. It bends deeper down, a good bit of the rod curves over into a nice wide arch. We call that a parabolic bend. Now that softer bend sounds like a weakness, but here's where I want you to think like a fisherman. It's a gift for certain baits. When you're throwing little finesse stuff, inline spinners, crappy jigs, light baits with thin wire hooks, a stiff fast rod will rip that little hook right out of the fish's mouth or tear a big hole and lose him. The moderate rod bends and gives, so it sets the hook gentle and holds the fish instead of tearing him off. The bend that looks weak is actually what lands you more fish on light baits. Once you see it that way, you stop asking which is better and start asking better for what. And here's how you check a rod's action right there in the store, 'cause you don't got to take the label's word for it. Hold the rod by the handle and give the tip a little push against the floor or against your hand. Gentle now. Watch where it starts to bend. If just the top few inches curl over and the rest stays stiff as a broom handle, that's your fast action. If it bends down deep, a third of the way, half the way, into a big smooth curve, That's your moderate, your parabolic. Grandpere taught me that with a cane pole when I was knee-high. He'd say the rod'll show you its whole character if you just lean on it a little. Don't buy a rod you didn't bend first. It's the fastest way to know exactly what's in your hand. Power. How strong the rod is. Next word, power. Now don't mix this up with action. They sound alike, but they're different animals. Action is where it bends. Power is how strong it is, how much it takes to bend it at all. And power runs on a scale from ultralight, up through light, medium heavy, all the way to extra heavy. Here's how you pick it. And it's pure common sense once I say it. Match the power to the fish you're after and the mess you're fishing in. Going after big bruisers, catfish, striped bass, muskie, or pitching up into thick vegetation and brush for a big largemouth, where you got to wrench him out before he wraps you in the salad. That's heavy power. A heavy rod pairs up with heavy line, 20-pound on up to 60, 80-pound for the real monsters, and it's got a nice long handle down below the reel. That long handle ain't for show. You tuck it against your body for leverage, both when you're chucking a heavy lure and when you're wrestling a big fish to the boat. Now the other end, ultralight. That's for little fish in open water where there's nothing to snag on, panfish, little trout, that kind of thing, fished on itty-bitty 1 to 6 pound line. It's a delicate, fun little rod that makes a small fish feel like a big one. Shoot, you can even use an ultralight to catch bait for your heavy rods. Catch a little shiner on the light one, put him on the heavy one, go get something that'll eat him. Most everybody, though, lives in the middle. A medium power rod will handle the bulk of what you're likely to chase. So if you're just starting, you camp in the middle and you're covered. And this ties right into another number printed on that rod, the line weight and lure weight it recommends. Right there by the power rating, it'll say something like 8 to 17 pound line, 1/4 ounce to 3/4 ounce lure. That ain't a suggestion you can ignore. That's the rod telling you the range it was built to throw. Put a lure lighter than that on there, and the rod's too stiff to load up and cast it right, it just flops off the end. Put one heavier and you're straining the rod past what it's made for, and you can crack it. So when you're matching power to your fish, glance at that lure weight number 2, and make sure the baits you plan to throw fall inside it. Match the whole outfit, rod, line, lure, to the same job, and everything works together instead of fighting you. That's the difference between a rod that feels like magic and one that feels broke. Length. How far and how fine now length, and this one's a trade, so hear both sides. A longer rod casts farther and lets you steer a bait up and down more precise. A shorter rod gives up some distance, but it's easier to handle in tight quarters. So the right length ain't about which is best, it's about where you fish. If you're in a kayak like a lot of folks are these days, sitting down low to the water, anything past about 7 foot gets clumsy and hard to manage. But if you're standing up in a boat, up higher off the water, longer than 7 foot, makes good sense. You got the room and the height for it. And if you're out on the beach fishing the surf, trying to heave a bait way out past the breakers, now you might want a 10-footer or even longer. There's no one answer. There's the answer for the water you stand in. And here's a practical one folks forget till it's too late. Think about how you're going to carry the thing. Which brings me right to the next question. 1 piece or 2, rods come mostly 1 piece or 2 piece. A 2-piece breaks down in the middle to half the size. And people ask me which is better, like there's a right answer. And honest, there mostly ain't. The old wisdom is a 1-piece is more sensitive because it's solid all the way through, and the little vibrations of fish mouthing your bait travel up it cleaner. And that's true, but I'll be straight with you, because honest is better than impressive. Today's 2-piece rods are so good, you'd be hard-pressed to feel the difference. I fish a whole mess of both, and I don't have a strong preference either. Weigh. The 2-piece has one big advantage. It breaks down to half the length, slides right into a kayak, drops in a backpack, fits in a car that a one-piece rod won't. If you gotta haul your gear any distance or stuff it in a small space, that's worth a lot. My one gripe, and it's the only one I got. Every now and then the top half of a two-piece will work itself loose while you're casting or fighting a fish, and that's a nuisance. Push it together good and snug, and it mostly behaves. But that one-piece question ties right back to length. 'Cause before you buy a long one-piece rod, you best ask yourself, is this thing even gonna fit in my truck? A whole lot of people find out the answer in the parking lot. What it's made of real quick, on what the rod's built from, 'cause you'll see the words, and I don't want them to spook you. The core of the rod, the main shaft, that's called the blank. And it's made of one of a few things. Fiberglass is the cheapest. It's tough, but it's the least sensitive. You feel less through it. Graphite and carbon fiber are light and strong, and you feel every little tick, but they cost more. And composite is just a blend of those, trying to give you a bit of both. Here's the thing that matters most to a real fisherman about material: weight. A lighter rod lets you fish all day without your arm turning to lead. That don't sound like much standing in the store, but come 3 o'clock after you've been casting since dawn, you'll thank me. A light, sensitive rod ain't a luxury. It's the difference between still fishing sharp in the afternoon and packing up early 'cause your arms wore out. And there's a second thing that material buys you, and it's sensitivity. How much you feel through the rod. Now, why does that matter? 'Cause a whole lot of bites ain't a big yank. A whole lot of bites are just a little tick, or your line goes mushy, or something feels different for half a second. On a cheap, dead fiberglass rod, that little tick never makes it up to your hand. The fish ate and spit, and you never knew he was there. On a good sensitive graphite rod, you feel that tick like a telegraph, and you set the hook, and you catch a fish the other fella never even knew bit him. That's what folks mean when they talk about feeling the bite. The rod's job ain't just to cast and haul, it's to report to you what's going on down there where you can't see. Read the water, feel the rod, and it'll tell you things your eyes never could. Now, the price and the truth about it. All right, this is the part I most wanted to get to, 'cause this is where they get you, and this is where Grandpa's voice is loudest in my ear. There is a huge spread in what a rod costs, and you got a decision to make. Now, can you catch a fish on a $10 rod? You surely can, but a rod that cheap is prone to breaking. It's heavy, it's got no sensitivity, and it'll fight you. So, don't go all the way to the bottom. But, and here's the part the fancy tackle wall does not want you to hear, you do not need to go anywhere near the top either. I've piled up more than 25 rods over 30-plus years of fishing, and you know what the ones I reach for most cost? Between $50 and about $150. That's it. That's the whole sweet spot. There's a carbon rod out there. I won't do a commercial, and I got no sponsor. Nobody's paying me a dime. That runs about $80 for near any size, and it's light, it's sensitive, it feels good in the hand, and it's cheap enough that I hand it to my kids and their friends without wincing. I bought 7 of them just 'cause they're that good. When I can only carry one rod on a trip, it's a toss-up between those and a rod that costs about double. And I'll tell you plain, the double one is better, but it ain't twice as good. It's a little better for twice the money. You hear what I'm saying? The rod companies make their living selling you the belief that the next fish is hiding inside the $300 rod. It ain't. The fish don't know what your rod cost. There's no money in telling a beginner that $80 is plenty, but it's the truth. And Grandpar'd have my hide if I told you any different. Spend in that 50 to 150 window, and the rest of what you'd have spent, put it toward gas and time on the water. That's where the fish actually are, bringing it home. So there's your whole rod, top to bottom, spinning or casting to. Match your reel. Action where it bends, fast for stout hooks, moderate for the light finesse stuff. Power, how strong, matched to your fish and your cover. Length matched to where you stand. One piece or two by how you haul it. A light material so your arm lasts, and a price right there in the middle where the value lives. And notice, not one time did I tell you the answer was the most expensive rod on the wall, 'cause it never is. Every one of those specs is just the rod being honest with you about what it's for. Learn to read it, and you'll never again stand in front of that wall feeling lost. You'll just pick one up, read what it tells you, and know. Do me a favor. Drop a comment and tell me what rod you're fishing right now and what you love about it, so we can all learn from each other. I read every single one.